What's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the NCSL Dynasty here on NCAA 14 and featuring that college football revamp as well. We are here in the midst of year number 2 of the NCSL Dynasty, closing in on the regular season 2 as we only have 5 more weeks of regular season action, weeks 10 through 14. So we are starting to see some of those hard questions being asked and some of those hard questions being answered. In this episode here today, we will have 16 nationally televised games for your enjoyment and for your entertainment as well. So I hope you guys go ahead. I hope you enjoyed today's episodes. We'll be going around the country, also checking in on various studio updates throughout this episode as well, to see how things are going in the games that we don't get the chance to watch in these games that we don't get the chance to directly watch in gameplay. So hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button for me. Hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new. I would truly appreciate that from the bottom of my heart as I'm trying to grow this college football community. And with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into the action. I'll see you guys on the field, on the various football fields around the country. So let's go ahead and get week number 10 NCSL action underway. We start with a quad box with multiple top 25 teams, including 2 teams that maybe should get top 25 consideration: Virginia Tech and Boston College, both having stellar seasons over in the newly formed Conference USA. But Virginia Tech is going to say, you know, this Boston College team is overrated. They take Boston College to town already with a 28-9 lead after 2.5 quarters of action. It has been a thorough beatdown so far as they look to seek that 30 burger, and they will get that 30 burger from Andrew Taylor, the FCS transfer. Virginia Tech, from the first quarter all the way to the fourth quarter, they dominated this game extremely thoroughly, and the Hokies will be able to go ahead and notch their 7th win of the season, beating Boston College 38-12 as the Hokies notch their 7th win of the year. Now, that being said, we do have other top 25 teams going into action, and if Virginia Tech wants to get back in, they need one of these top 25 teams to lose. Number 25, North Carolina, they are taking on their rival in North Carolina State. Both teams are in the hunt to win the Carolinas division in the ACC conference. So this is a big game for both teams. And also, may I mention that this is also a rivalry game as well for both of these teams. So a lot at stake here, even though they may not have the best records, particularly North Carolina State, as that's a good throw over to the right hand side. It's Turian Cunningham is going to notch a 14-yard reception. And now staring down a goal line opportunity to give the Wolfpack the lead. First and goal. They're going to run it up the gut, and Justin Glover is going to punch it in. Touchdown, North Carolina State, and the Wolfpack are going to howl ahead as the North Carolina Tar Heels at number 25 ranking could be in some trouble here, as they do. While they get the touchdown, they actually do end up missing the extra point. So, you know, you really hate to see that. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite North Carolina later on. But regardless of whether that extra point was actually made or not, North Carolina State is actually going to have a 17-9 lead. However, why am I showing special teams? Something is about to go down on special teams. We'll see it down the sideline. Able to make some guys miss. Only one more person to beat, but he gets caught. But Justin Mitchell with an absolutely stellar kick return. They're going to be set up nicely as they already are in Wolfpack territory to start this next drive. And they got 3 timeouts to work with, 2. Except a couple plays later, throws an interception. I cannot believe just the absolute fumbling of the bag that we just witnessed there. Wow. That means North Carolina State, they have a chance to answer with 35 seconds left. They only have one timeout, though. They're going to find a man deep downfield, and it's Turian Cunningham. He's made some big plays in the first half for North Carolina State, and because the Wolfpack are down to their last timeout, they're going no huddle. Blake Fountain, he's going to be lining up in the pistol, dropping back again, throws over to the right-hand side, and finds Turian Cunningham once again for a 24-yard touchdown. And North Carolina State is dominating early and putting the Tar Heels of North Carolina in trouble. A loss here could kick the North Carolina Tar Heels out of the top 25. This is an amazing development. Could create some room for Virginia Tech as well. Another team that's in the ACC as well. It is a non-conference matchup. It looks like that's exactly what's going to happen. North Carolina State wins 31-12. There's going to be some room in that top 25 for sure. Now we'll see if that is the same, if Texas can hold its own against Texas A&M. Two teams that are on the opposite spectrum. Texas A&M has somehow not won a single game this season, which I don't know how they pull that off. There's more than enough talent to, at the bare minimum, be at least 500 to be in that 3-4, 4-3 range, bare minimum. So really surprised that this is the last team in college football right now that is yet to win a game. So it's been interesting to say the least. Probably going to see a coach fired here from Texas A&M for those of you that might be interested in custom coaches jobs in the upcoming offseason. But Texas, exact opposite. They have really played much better than they have in year number one. They have a 7-0 record coming into this thing, and they're trying to go into Aggieland here in Kyle Field and try to shut the doors once again, as the Lone Star Showdown is favoring the Texas Longhorns early on, a 14-0 lead already, and Texas is driving down the field once more. 1st and 10, dropping back, looks over the middle, finds a receiver, and Julian Sanders, who's going to cut upfield, and it's a touchdown for Texas, giving him a 21-0 lead. And the lead could just find itself getting bigger. They're going to run the ball right up the gut with Trey Dixon, who has nearly 100 yards of rushing already. We'll see if they go back to him. They don't. Ingram's going to throw instead, but gets picked off in the back of the end zone. Wall is going to get that touchdown, stop Texas from scoring there. But the offense has simply not done its job today. Texas A&M only able to put up a field goal thus far. And this Texas offense, it's more than dangerous. This is one of the best offensive teams in the entire country. And we're seeing that in full swing here on this goal line set. 2nd and goal, Dixon. He's going to fight forward and get yet another touchdown for the Texas Longhorns. In the Lone Star Showdown, it's going to go to Texas. 38-5 being your score. It was never close to begin with. Now, that being said, we got ourselves a top 25 matchup on our hands. We got the Syracuse Orange. They are going on the road, and they will be taking on the Nittany Lions of Penn State. So we take a look at the Union Division standings within Conference USA. A pretty good division, actually. Includes 3 ranked teams already, maybe a 4th in Boston College, if it wasn't for the fact that they just got their cheeks clapped by Virginia Tech. But starting this game off, defenses are going to make a name for themselves, as the Syracuse linebacker Marcus Turner just takes advantage of the fact that that ball was thrown behind him. It was thrown behind him, so Syracuse is able to drive down and get a field goal, and they'll take a 3-0 lead from that particular run. But Brian Henry, he's going to look to answer back, and he will make up for the interception in a massive way, as Brian Henry is going to run the ball into the end zone. Touchdown, Penn State, and the number 12 ranked Nittany Lions take the lead. I mean, it just came down to making a man miss in the open field, and Brian Henry, he stiff arms that man into the next dimension. So a 7-3 lead for the Nittany Lions, as now Jacob Butler looks to answer back. He's a pretty mobile quarterback too. He's showing it in full display down the sideline. Finally gets chopped down inside the 35-yard line. As you can see the rushing stats for Jacob Butler going into this game. Now with over 700 yards rushing on this season, he's been a dynamic threat for the Orange. But can he make it happen in the end zone? No, he can't do it with the arm. At least not this time around. As Butler was just trying to eye that post pattern, but it was covered. It was covered like cheese on macaroni, and nothing that could be done about that. But second quarter, Syracuse does drive down the field once again for another red zone opportunity, and DJ Johnson, one of the receivers for Syracuse, actually going to get the carry here, as they do have some injuries at the running back position. They'll still have the lead though. 10-7 is your score for the moment, but Blaine Ingram is going to make sure that they will once again have the lead yet again, as Blaine Ingram just following his blocks. And I mean, I could run through that hole. It's just so obvious. Only Trent Richardson would probably miss that type of hole. But 10-14 is your score, as Syracuse, we're going to answer back a big time run by Mike Weddle. Another one of the Syracuse Orange receivers getting busy with it. And eventually they'll have to settle for a field goal. The field goal is good, and it's a 50-plus yarder, so that was not an easy field goal to make at all. So 14-13 is your score, but final moments of the first half though, Jason Smith, he was paying attention to the 10 toes down movement, and he's making his affiliation loud and clear, able to get all 10 toes in. That would have been a catch at the NFL level. That's a 21-13 lead. But now we go into the second half of action, as we go ahead and see this Penn State offense try to go to work. But Syracuse is going to pick this pass off. He's got a convoy, but Henry is going to push him out of bounds. So saving the touchdown. I'm surprised that Marcus Turner wasn't able to get into the end zone there. He had the convoy, just no one thought to, hey, maybe we should block this quarterback. I mean, look at this replay. It goes literally right in between two blockers. Like, you have to be kidding me, right? But Syracuse still has a chance to tie this game, and they will with Kyle Jackson. A nice throw in the back of the end zone, as Jacob Butler will now have his second total touchdown of the afternoon. And I imagine that they'll also go for the 2-point conversion in order to tie this game up once and for all. We'll see if they come up with a 2-point conversion as they try to run it, but it's going to be stuffed. John Talley, he has nowhere to go, so Penn State, well, they're still going to have the lead as we go further into the third quarter, as I don't know how that was possible, but Brian Henry scores on that. There was 5 separate Syracuse defenders that had a chance to bring him down. Nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, was able to bring him down. Yeah, more than 5. 6 Syracuse defenders, and Penn State is able to pull away after that. The Nittany Lions win 31-19 as they control their destiny in the Union Division. But we have more NCSL action coming your way, most notably number 2 Ohio State taking on the Bobcats of Ohio in an in-state battle. Speaking of in-state battles, so we'll check in on Georgia Tech taking on Georgia State in the Battle of Atlanta. A nice little rivalry game between these two teams, as both teams are looking to try to keep their seasons alive, particularly Georgia State. If Georgia State loses this game, then we will see them not eligible to go to a bowl game this season, and that would be tough to see. But this Georgia State team has an offensive coordinator, one of your guys' custom coaches, and Josephi Krakowski. But this was just a rough day to be a Georgia State Panthers fan. Georgia Tech, their hated rivals, on the road. Well, they are going to trounce all over them in the first half. They already got a 17-0 lead. And it looks like early on, the Yellow Jackets are trying to sting them away from a possible victory. Second and goal, looking around, facing some pressure, but he has a wide open running back who is going to bounce into the end zone, just singing Kumbaya. And Amon Moore is going to have his first passing touchdown of the season. That was the backup that actually stepped in there for a quick moment. And not only will we get a passing touchdown, also a rushing touchdown too, as Georgia Tech led from wire to wire and is going to win big in the Battle of Atlanta, 44-10. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and now check in with the number 2 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. They'll take on the Ohio Bobcats, who are just 1-7. They just got their first victory of the season, I think, in the previous episode. Not a game that we saw in a studio update or anything like that. It wasn't anyone notable, but hey, a win is a win, and anything that you can do to avoid being fired, I'm sure that's going to be extremely nice, right? But Anthony Green is going to get the touchdown reception, so Ohio is actually going to have the lead here early. They will be up 7-0 here in the horseshoe. But let's see if this Ohio State offense can get themselves back to work as they'll hand it up over the middle to Brian Britt. And listen, Ohio State, they certainly have the physicality in the trenches. We'll see if they can move some bodies here on the goal line. And sure enough, they will for starting quarterback Brooke Hicks. Yes, he is back in the starting lineup. We saw quite a bit of Vincent Gold recently, but Vincent Gold was the actual backup. So while Vincent Gold did a great job, Brooks Hicks is back in the starting lineup. He's back from his shoulder injury. And now we'll see if he can cook again. And more specifically, cook this Ohio defense, which Ohio's putting up a bigger fight than expected, as Ohio State's actually down by 6. So 2.5 minutes left here in this first half. We'll see if they can get a good 2-minute drive here to end the first half, build some momentum. Third and short, a couple plays later, they're going to go with the run, as it looks like we got a nice hole for Brian Britt, who carries the Ohio Bobcats officially past midfield. Right after that particular play, we had a timeout call, so 2 remaining as they go over the middle. We got a receiver who's now into the open field and is going to be brought down inside the 10-yard line. Keith Carter. Hey, Mr. Carter, how are you doing? He's going to be doing that goal line situation now, and sure enough, very next play, Mike Coleman is going to catch the touchdown as Brooke Hicks throws his first touchdown pass since that shoulder injury. But yet, Ohio, even though we saw that amazing drive from Ohio State, it's going to be the Bobcats that actually have the lead at the halftime break. Now, we move into the third quarter now as Ohio State tries to pull away from Ohio. We got ourselves a fight on our hands. This would be the upset of the season if Ohio could find a way to pull it off here. But midway through the third quarter, Ohio State, they will have their biggest lead of the game as Brian Britt is going to punch it in. Touchdown, Ohio State. And they'll get the extra point there too. And they're not even done. Brian Britt, he's going to continue to cook the Ohio defense as he'll get yet another touchdown on the ground. They're on pace for a 40-burger before the end of the third quarter. And Hooks, can he make it happen? Well, that's not the way to get that done, as Tyler Miller will get the sack there. But second and goal, though, from the 15-yard line. Hooks got some time. Throws over the left-hand side. It's intercepted. And here comes the return downfield. Can he go all the way? And yes, he will. Ohio is right back in the game as the Ohio Bobcats get a pick 6. They opt not to go for the 2-point conversion. And maybe they should have, because Ohio State gets down the field. It was a relentless offensive attack today by Ohio State, even with 4 turnovers. Yeah, you saw that graphic below on that kick return, or on the pick 6. Yeah, they managed to find a way to turn the ball over 4 times, and yet they still might put 50 up on the board still. Still a lot of football left to be played with 5.5 minutes left. And there it is, boys. We got that 50-burger as Ohio State. More entertaining game than maybe what they wanted, but they do win an exciting one. 50-37. But now we check in on the Missouri Tigers as they take on the Hawkeyes of Iowa State. Iowa State looking for one more win to get to bowl eligibility, while Missouri is trying to make that a little bit easier on themselves as a win in conference action in the newly formed American Conference. Well, they will be, they could make itself easier for them to get bowl eligibility, but Tony Davidson, first and foremost, that's a nice catch, but Nathan Randall on the move and able to make a play like that, absolutely incredible. So 7-0 lead for the Iowa State Hawkeyes, but Patrick James will make sure that it does end up getting evened up, as Missouri does even it out at 7 apiece. 2 minutes left in the first half, though, as we got another big-time play down the field, looking for a receiver, and that is a dot! That is an absolute dime to the double Thomas, as Jake Lewis drops it right in the bucket. And now Missouri has their first lead of the day. We'll see if they can hold it for all 4 quarters. Looking around, going to find his tight end over the middle to Cedric Mills, who picks up a gain of 6. So makes the second down conversion more manageable. A 2nd and 4 coming right up here as Patrick James does get another first down for the Missouri Tigers. Seems like they've been controlling this third quarter pretty well for the most part, and Patrick James will finish the job there too, as Missouri Tigers will take a bigger lead. But not too long after, Missouri, after a stop against the Iowa State Hawkeyes, they will have another red zone opportunity. They go back to the double Thomas, who is having a stellar day so far, on the verge of having 100 yards receiving in the ball game. But it won't be the passing game that makes noise. Oh no, it's going to be Patrick James, who has yet another rushing touchdown to his name. And Missouri wins convincingly here as they take down Iowa State 42-7. But that being said, we have more NCSL football that is coming your way. Most notably, number 14 Michigan will be taking on Michigan State for the battle of Paul Bunyan's axe. So that being said, we will now check in on a couple of other games before maybe we dive into that. We got Notre Dame taking on Navy. Navy comes in ranked number 16 in the country, although Notre Dame has been a team that's been pretty disappointing. They have 4 losses in MAC conference play, so it's been tough to really watch them go through that. But in non-conference play, though, things have been going extremely well. We'll see if they can get another non-conference win against a team that's ranked in the top 25. They do have a win against Alabama, and look at this, we got a fumble on the ground, and Notre Dame is going to recover it as we get right before the end of the first half. They drive down the field, and they'll successfully kick that field goal. So not a very high-scoring game here in Annapolis, Maryland, but we do see Notre Dame with a 9-7 lead. We just got to see if there's actually going to be some more points on the board after that. And it looks like Notre Dame's offense is starting to heat up a little bit. We'll see them get this touchdown on the board, make it a 9-point game. But then 6.5 minutes left in the ball game. I don't know how this run happens. This looked dicey from the get-go, but somehow Bell's able to find a way to give points on this play. It's incredible for him to remain calm in that type of traffic, but Notre Dame still up by 2, so they've just got to get a stop down here in the red zone. Otherwise, it might be barbecue chicken. 2nd and goal now as Notre Dame has a chance to shut the door. Hunt looks over the middle. He finds Sean Hawkins for a touchdown, and Notre Dame makes it a 1-possession game. They'll go for the extra point here, and 9-point game here still. And Greg Hunt, he is just going to take it in himself to put an end to this game. Going for some style points, I see. All right, I see you, instead of just taking the knee. And they'll even go for a 2-point conversion, which is actually successful. The 2-point conversion is good. And while we're waiting to see the final score of our game, we get a studio update. It was been quite a shocker. UTEP is going to pull the upset on Baylor as the Miners win by a touchdown. They're now 6-2 and ready to go bowling. Meanwhile, Notre Dame is closer to making the same thing happen. They win 31-17 as well. That being said, we go across the West Coast to see Stanford. Well, they're playing for their football lives right now. A loss today would mean they will not be able to go to a bowl game at the end of the regular season. Meanwhile, UCLA are national runners-up back in season number 1. They're trying to keep themselves in the college football playoff hunt. A lose there would likely guarantee them not to be able to go to that 8-team playoff. That is something that could realistically happen, but UCLA, they're kind of stumbling out the gate a little bit. They're already down by a field goal, and Stanford is going to drive down the length of the field. And while it hasn't been the most offensively porous game, 13-7 is not the high-scoring game that would favor the Stanford Cardinal. But in the second half, we do have something brewing with this kick return. Hang on now. Is this going to be brought back to start the second half? What we do? Brent Childress is going to have a 103-yard kick return for a touchdown. And the significance of that is not only UCLA taking the lead, but it breaks the NCAA record for longest kick return too. That's by a couple of yards. So great to see that. And UCLA is able to build up on its lead a little bit. Field goal there will make it a 4-point game. But then towards the end of the third quarter, though, Stanford not messing around. Well, they'll get a touchdown pass thrown over to Rowan Hill. And all of a sudden, ladies and gentlemen, we got ourselves a football game on our hands, or so I thought, because UCLA, well, they decided to start to lean forward in the gaming chair a little bit after Stanford was able to get that last touchdown, and they stopped messing with Stanford after that. UCLA, they just take control of this fourth quarter as another Brent Childress touchdown is going to seal it. UCLA got their scare. This was closer than what the score says, but the Bruins win by 3 touchdowns here against the Stanford Cardinal, who won't be going bowling. Meanwhile, speaking of those conference games, we got Michigan taking on the Michigan State Spartans, as Michigan State, not the same team that we saw this time last year. This was a top 25 team last year, but Michigan, Michigan might be out of that college football playoff picture. They're already, they got that 21-0 lead, but they're just 6-2 right now. But that being said, Michigan has controlled this rivalry game early, but we do see the Spartans finally find their way into the end zone, however. But beyond that, we do see this Wolverines team really take control. Great throw to the left-hand side, by the way. That was a beautiful throw by Lawrence Arnold. As now, last moments of the first half, Michigan State at least gets a field goal up on the board. But it's not a particularly close game at the moment. 28-10 it being your score. We do see Michigan cruise a little bit here. Just going to be some field goals. We don't see them score nearly as much here in the second half as maybe in the first few moments of this game. But unless we see a massive collapse here, I think Michigan is going to be declared the winner of this ball game, right? But still, a lot of crazy things can happen here in the game of college football. But Michigan does extend their lead to a 24-point game, so no room for error anymore. They're going to not only need some touchdowns, but they're going to need some onside kicks as well. Plus, those timeouts will certainly come in handy as well, as they will actually try to go for the 2-point conversion here, trying to make this a 2-score game, but just nowhere to go. And I think that fat lady is going to be singing. So Michigan wins 34-16 in order to win the Paul Bunyan's trophy. Now, we have some more studio updates that are waiting for us, and this is a shocker. Louisiana Tech, the number 9 team in college football, they lose in conference play to Southern Miss. Southern Miss wins 33-17, and this could cause a major shakeup in the top 25 polls. Meanwhile, we get some other scoring updates as well, as Boise State and San Jose State were in a close one, though the Broncos did end up winning. And then in other news on top of that, a shootout in the Big Ten Conference, as Toledo, in a battle against the Akron Zips. Akron could have been bowl eligible, but they're going to fall just short. But Colorado State, they came in ranked number 20 in the entire country. Well, they're going to win 45-17. And the Rams are going to clobber the Sun Devils of Arizona State. As it looks like Colorado State looks like a team that's going to create a lot of pride for the Mountain West if they can finish the regular season strong. Now, we do have one more studio update before we get back into action. And this is something that we already saw, but I wanted to point this out a little bit further. How about UTEP, man? UTEP, they end up going bowling. This should be a team that's ranked in the top 25. This is another top 25 win, this time against the Baylor Bears, while West Jordan also had a solid game too. So that being said, we do have another top 25 game waiting for us. This is Sun Belt Conference action. We have the Auburn Tigers, who come in ranked number 21 in the entire country. Well, they will be taking on the Razorbacks of Arkansas. Arkansas ranked in the top 15, and might I say, Arkansas has been one of those teams that have been playing a lot of top 25 games as of late. It has been a tough slate for the Arkansas Razorbacks, but they will try to persevere and try to make something shake here. This could have some Sun Belt Conference implication as well, so it's going to be interesting to see how this particular game turns out, as Auburn is actually going to strike first. Kyle Berry is going to find the end zone for the Auburn Tigers, as Derek Alexander, first drive of the game, is going to lead to a passing touchdown. So Auburn is going to have the lead on Arkansas. So Michael Mawu is going to have to try to respond himself. That's a good throw over the middle of the field. That was a dot to Derek Dunn, who gets 34 yards on his first catch of the day. But unfortunately, it doesn't lead to too much after that, as the Razorbacks do have to settle for a field goal. And that was the story for Arkansas. They had to settle for field goals quite a bit in that first quarter of action. So Auburn still has that 1-point lead, even though Arkansas might have done a little bit better of a job moving up and down the field. But Auburn gets another big play, and that's going to spark this 4-yard touchdown run for Will Walton, who's going to help the Tigers extend their lead. Auburn, a team that does need one more win to go to a bowl game as well. But Arkansas, if George Bate was able to stay on his feet, Michael Motley put a lot of spice on that. Man, if he was able to put a little bit more touch on that ball, that would have been a touchdown. But it won't kill them on the scoreboard, though, because they will still end up finding the end zone anyways. Lionel Sanders, well, he was just wide butt naked open, and that's going to be just an easy touchdown. I mean, no one was covering the guy. No one's covering the tight end. So Arkansas will go for the 2-point conversion, trying to tie this game up, but not a lot of people getting open initially. But Logan McGee does right when time starts to run out. We got a tie ball game going into the half. After that, we don't have a lot of scoring for the rest of the game, but Auburn, Auburn clutches up when it matters the most. Ray Gross, he's going to score for the Auburn Tigers. That would seal the deal, as the Auburn Tigers are able to pull the upset on the road against Arkansas. Tigers win by 10, and they're looking real good in Sun Belt Conference play right now. But a couple more games getting ready to go into action. Most notably, number 7 Miami and number 1 USC all going to work. San Diego State, a team that was supposed to be a tad better than what we have seen them play throughout the course of this season. So we'll see what this San Diego State team can do, because they're fighting for their lives right now. A loss here would also make sure that they are not eligible to go to a bowl game either. But this Miami team is certainly no joke. They are in the hunt for the college football playoff. Not to mention, they are the defending national champions as well, and they show that national championship prowess early, as Miami is going to be able to put up 21 on San Diego State before we even get out of the opening frame. It could be a long day for the Aztecs, as Tom O'Neal gets absolutely crushed. I'm surprised that he's able to bounce right back up. But either way, that leads to a 3rd and 16, where Tom O'Neal, he hangs tough in the pocket and is able to find Michael Parker for the touchdown. Aztecs do finally get up on the scoreboard. Look at this later on in the second quarter, a chance for the Aztecs to make this just a 1-score game. And sure enough, an untouched Charles Schroeder on the option. Now we could have a game on our hands. San Diego State not scared of this top 10 team from Miami, as Tom O'Neal, he's making some big plays, man. Brandon Holman, he finds him in the back of the end zone. They do miss the extra point, though, so it does make it an 8-point game. You do hate to see that when your kickers do end up missing the extra points. So Miami has a chance to make this a 2-score game early in the fourth quarter, as they go back to not Mr. Carter. That's Jared McBride. Jared McBride's been kind of quiet in this game, less than 100 yards, no touchdowns to speak of, but that will change as Jared McBride is able to cure that drought. He'll find the end zone, And Miami now with a more comfortable lead. But San Diego State looking to rally. Goal line situation. O'Neal looking for another big play. He's got some time. Throws to the end zone. And it's a touchdown for the Aztecs. We'll see if they go for the 2-point conversion or settle for the extra point. And it looks like they're actually going for the 2-point conversion. A bold strategy for Conant, but it's caught. Michael Parker finds the 2-point conversion. And again, we got a close game on our hands. Miami must deliver a touchdown here in the red zone. And they will with Casey Carter. Hey, Mr. Carter, how have you been? Well, I've been doing pretty darn good, as Miami is going to win this one. An exciting game that San Diego State unfortunately really needed. The Aztecs lose by 2 scores. So speaking of those West Coast teams, though, how about we check in on that number 1 team in the country, the USC Trojans. They will be taking on a pretty good Fresno State team as well. Fresno State one win away from going to experience bowl season yet again, as Ben Scott is looking to get the first touchdown of the game midway through the first quarter of action. And sure enough, they will do that. They will get a touchdown on the board. Also getting a safety too, so it didn't have to wait very long in order for USC to get the ball yet again. So it sets them up beautifully to really take control of this game early by taking possibly as much as a 16-point lead before we get out of the first quarter. We'll see if they can punch it in here late in this first quarter of action. They will have to deal with a goal line situation though. 3rd and goal inside the 5. And they will elect the pass with Ben Scott, who I don't know who he was trying to float that pass to, but that was a terrible idea. Respectfully, Ben Scott, what the heck are you doing? That was not a good read. So that might spark Fresno State a little bit, as Bulldogs are trying to put the drive together of their own. They have their own red zone opportunity. We'll see if they can punch it in, unlike what USC did on their previous red zone chance. 3rd and short coming up. They're going to throw over to the right-hand side, but it's intercepted. But wait a minute, the linebacker gets loose, and it could be going all the way, and he's pulling away from the rest of the group. Barely any Fresno State guys on the TV, but Chase Hines with a just costly decision, and USC dominating this first half. Needless to say, they will end up taking a 29-7 lead into the half, and they'll carry that into the 3rd quarter as well, as USC elected to kick and defer to the second half. So they got the first possession of the second half as well. So they got a big lead, they have momentum, and they have the ball. Fresno State certainly being down bad right now, as Nick Richards going to power through one of the Fresno State defensive linemen, and USC going to just pummel Fresno State. They win 71-14. Oh my goodness. So that was the biggest score that we saw in this season so far, actually. But now we'll shift over to LSU taking on the number 18 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide, as the Crimson Tide look to remain in the top 25. And it starts with a good throw over the middle to Ernest Concepcion, as Ernest Concepcion gets yet another receiving touchdown. He's been coming on here in the second half of the season, but now we'll see LSU try to answer back late in the first quarter, possibly second quarter, as they do let it expire, and they're now on the opposite side of the field for next play. And it looks like Sean Callahan early in the second quarter does finish the job for the LSU Tigers, and we still got a close game on our hands. Midway through the second quarter, they go back to Damian Morton, and Damian Morton does get the ball inside the 5-yard line to make this a much more manageable 2nd and goal. We'll see if they choose to run it again. They don't. This quarterback's got plenty of time, and Clayton Stevenson, not a perfectly thrown ball, but he's able to make a beautiful adjustment and give LSU the lead. But Alabama looking to respond back with a 48-yard field goal. That does cut it to just a 1-point game. So a close one here in this rivalry. A rivalry game that can certainly go either way, given the emotions that are behind these two teams right now. Curtis West understands the severity of the moment. He's going to take it himself in for a rushing touchdown, but then they fail to convert the 2-point conversion as well. So an LSU touchdown would give them the lead, and that's exactly what they got on the other end. LSU does score, and they are actually able to take the lead. So that being considered, every drive's going to become a lot more important now. 3-point game, 1 quarter left, and something that we do hardly see in NCAA 14, we actually see a quarterback sneak. Imagine that, being able to see a quarterback sneak. That gives Alabama the lead, and they unfortunately can't shut the door on LSU. They had to settle for a field goal with 4 minutes left. LSU also deciding to go for a field goal. I thought that was particularly bold as well. I was surprised that they did not decide to go for it, but Alabama cannot run out the clock, and LSU still has all of their timeouts as well. So that being considered, LSU can still win this game. 1 minute left here in the ball game, still having all of their timeouts. Dropping back, looks to the right hand side, he's got an open man, and Clayton Stevenson, he does get brought down in bounds. The Tigers use a couple of their timeouts. Couple of plays later, again dropping back the pass and throws behind him, and that's gonna be costly as Alabama wins 29-25 in order to remain in the top 25. So a couple more studio updates in the meanwhile, and the shockers keep coming. Rice, the number 3 team in the nation, falls to UTSA, but then UNLV could really benefit from that as they win 21-10. They're 7-1 and yet not ranked in the top 25. Hopefully that does change, but let's go ahead and wrap up the gameplay in this episode. We do have a couple of nightcaps, both of which are rivalry games. We start with the Holy War as BYU and Utah are getting ready to go ahead and face off up against each other. Both teams are looking to get back to 500 and get to that 4-4 record. As we do have a 3rd and goal coming up, as that's going to be a nice run of the gut for Tim Bell, and Tim Bell is going to score a touchdown for BYU there. But a low-scoring game, to say the least. Not a lot of scoring happening, at least to start things out, but again, still a lot of football here in the second quarter of action. Will Wilson is able to get his first catch of the day for 8 yards, and it will make it a much more manageable goal line situation as Roy Hafner does get his first catch of the day as well for a total of 6 yards. But 2nd and goal coming up. They are looking to punch it into the end zone, and they will. Blake Snyder will give BYU the lead here in the Holy War, and they'll frankly take control of the Holy War as well, as they will rattle off 17 unanswered points before we get into halftime. Now, 3rd quarter of action, and Utah in desperate need of trying to get back and try to make sure that they can make this 12-point lead, or try to erase this 12-point lead. But Utah having to settle for a bunch of field goals. They have not done a great job in the red zone today. Out of all the red zone opportunities, they've only had 1 touchdown this entire time. If that, it might have been a bunch of field goals, as that is just an incredibly risky pitch. But yet it works. Tim Bell is able to get that in somehow. I don't know how he managed to pull that off, but he did pull it off, though. I'll tell you that. And they're going to try for the 2-point conversion as well. I don't know why they felt the need to go for said 2-point conversion. They probably would have been fine with a 16-point lead. Hopefully it doesn't come back and bite them in the butt, but it might, because now if Utah can get their 2-point conversion to go, all of a sudden it's just a 7-point game. No need for the 2-point conversion to evolve overtime. And look at that. Jimmy Boone gets the throw in, and now we got ourselves a ball game. 30-23 is your score, as Utah has a chance to tie this game with a minute left, but throwing over the middle, and there was a blanket all over that receiver, unfortunately. So Utah, they did a good job trying to come back and win this game, but unfortunately it's just not going to be enough, as BYU is going to be coming away as winners of this year's iteration of the Holy War rivalry. So one more game that we have, and it's a battle between two teams that don't like each other in the state of Virginia. It's Virginia and Old Dominion. Old Dominion does have one of your custom coaches in Sam Cash. And Old Dominion, both teams are, trying to remain alive in the bowl eligibility hunt, as Old Dominion currently has the lead at 6-3. So a low scoring affair to start things out, but nice dot over the middle to Marshall Gardner, though, as that will give the Monarchs a first down to work with before they punch it in with 5 minutes left in the first half. Nick Mason, he's going to punch it in for a touchdown. And Old Dominion taking control in this second quarter, upset 20-3. Now, how about possibly making it 27-3 as Nick Mason, he's going to be taking his way down the sideline, and the Monarchs, well, they are just played some great football today in Norfolk, Virginia. Virginia never stood a chance as Old Dominion, they take down the Virginia Cavaliers 39-20, and the game was not as close as what the score could possibly indicate. But now let's go ahead and take a moment to look around the country to look at some other notable box scores within week number 10. Here at Air Force, they did take on Army as part of that Commanders Cup series, and Army does end up winning 48-30 in his what was surprisingly a shootout, even though both teams do like to run that triple option. Army does get one win away from bowl eligibility and also gets themselves inside the top 20. Meanwhile, Wyoming might be turning a bit of a corner here as they win their second game in a row. This one being a blowout, actually. Wyoming is able to absolutely, completely blank Utah State 45-0, as Wyoming now has a solid 4-5 record. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Golden Gophers prove why they are worthy of being a top 10 team in the country, doing what they're supposed to do, and that is absolutely embarrass the Duke Blue Devils. Minnesota wins 45-17 as Duke falls to 1-7. Tough luck for your custom coaches. And speaking of bad luck for your custom coaches, offensive coordinator J.D. Weeks was hapless against the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss, a top 5 team in the country, as Ole Miss wins 59-14. Troy will not be going bowling either here in year number 2. We do, however, say welcome back to the Tulane Green Wave, as Tulane not only clinching a bowl berth, but they also back in the top 25 as well, as Tulane beats Louisiana Lafayette 41-20. The Tulane Green Wave are at an above average 6-3 on the year. Speaking of teams that are having a great year, how about the Miami Redhawks? They are now 7-2 thanks to a 38-7 victory over the Purdue Boilermakers. Miami, in my opinion, should be a team ranked in the top 25, but this is a team for now that is grossly underrated. One of those teams ahead of Miami is the California Bears, and that will remain the case for now. California took on Oregon State in a shootout as Cal wins 42-33. The Cal Bears also just one win away from bowl eligibility, even though they're ranked number 21st in the country. A team, however, that is not undisputed in terms of being a top 25 team is the Washington Huskies. How about what they do now that they have a non-conference game? Washington absolutely taking all of their pain and suffering out on Cincinnati. Washington wins 49-3 as the Bearcats were just completely helpless in this game. Meanwhile, the Iowa Hawkeyes work to get back into the top 25, and this is a team that has a legitimate case to make that happen, as Iowa wins 30-0, but yet not enough respect from the AP pollsters to make that happen, as Iowa is still outside of the top 25. However, staying in the American Conference, Nebraska Cornhuskers show that they are indeed a top 10 team in the country, taking down Kansas State 35-13. Nebraska only has a couple of games left in the regular season, so they'll look to try to finish strong. And of course, rounding out your studio updates in terms of box score looking in week number 10 is Georgia, who played on a Sunday surprisingly, which is really weird to see, but that's what NCAA decided. They took on Louisiana Monroe, and the Warhawks, maybe that 6-2 record was inflated because Georgia was dominating this game from the start. Bulldogs win by 30 plus as they jump in more into that top 5 conversation. So now, all things considered, this is what the coaches poll is going to be looking like, which is what is actually being reflected here in the actual top 25 rankings being displayed. So, only notable change in the top 5 is that Texas does move up a couple of spots, as you know, they played a win-with Texas A&M team, but you know, they did win pretty convincingly, so no problems there. Texas jumping more into that top 3, top 4 category. Not a lot of movement other than that in the top 10, with the exception of towards the bottom of that, with Minnesota moving up a couple of spots, and then Penn State going on the road and beating, well, no, they were not on the road actually, they were at home against Syracuse. Still a good win though, as Penn State jumps into that top 10. Meanwhile, Michigan took care of business in the Paul Bunyan game. They move up 3 spots to number 11 in the country. Washington doing the same thing. We saw them take that out on Cincinnati. Auburn with a really impressive win. I was skeptical of Auburn being a top 25, but I mean, after a win like that against Arkansas, you have to keep them in there and move them up. So Auburn moving up to 13 makes a lot of sense. Alabama was in a fight in their life against LSU. LSU, a very talented team, although the record doesn't necessarily show that. Alabama moves up 4 spots. Rice with the biggest drop of the week, though. That loss takes them down to number 15 in the country. That is a tough look for Rice. They'll have some work to do if they want to go to the college football playoff, but they are having an excellent season. Colorado State up 4 spots to number 16 in the country. Louisiana Tech falls to 17 after that loss to Southern Miss. Arkansas moves down 5 spots after the home loss to Auburn. Then we have Army at 19. Washington State, who was on bye yet again, well, they move up to number 20 in the country. They are at 6-2. Rounding out your top 25 is Cal at 21, Syracuse at 22, and then 3 newcomers into the top 25 poll in Tulane, Virginia Tech. They are back in after a 1-week hiatus, and UNLV, who is ranked top 25 in the country and definitely deserved as well. So it's certainly been an action-packed episode here in the NCSL Dynasty, and I definitely hope that you enjoyed it here on the John Jay Gaming channel. If you did, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button for me, as that does help me out with the YouTube algorithm. It'll only take you a couple of seconds as well, but also in the meantime, to top all of that, if you're brand new and you just love what you're seeing, do me a huge favor, guys. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button for me. It also only takes a few seconds as well, and we can grow this college football community as well. With that being said, this is John Jay Gaming on the mic signing off. Hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.